We're going to start with questions from the advisory committee.
Well done, Max Peregoodoff. That is a very daunting research topic to tackle, so good job. So just a question for you. What was the most challenging concept you encountered during your Masterworks project, and how did you understand it better?
So I'd probably have to say that was probably a theory I didn't include here, which was called vacuum decay. And it basically says that one day this field that we don't even know if it exists will quantumly tunnel into a different energy state and destroy the entire universe. Now it's really hard to understand. And the way I understood it better was I kind of just, I don't know, if I kind of just I had to think, and if I just accepted it, I don't know, gave myself into the theory, it kind of helped. And also, another one that was also really challenging for me was, where is it? It was the Big Bang, because I was like, how did everything, how did that start? Why didn't it just stay down as a singularity? And I think the way I understood it better was I did some more research into it, and I found that gravity under those circumstances might actually exist as reverse than it does now because of the circumstances, and that's how it helped me.
Nice, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Peregoodoff. That was amazing. A real challenging subject to bring alive. I think you did a fantastic job. I've got two questions for you. The first maybe more technical, and then a subjective one. So the first question relates to a graphic you showed when you were discussing the Big Crunch and the Big Bounce, and the shapes of the universes in those two scenarios were distinctly bell-shaped, as opposed to what we might consider being more probable of having them have a cone shape. So I'm just wondering if you can talk about why the bell shape is sort of important in that.
Okay, so I'll go back. It's here.
There you go. Yeah.
So from my belief, it actually shouldn't be shaped like that on the other side, on the Big Crunch. It should be shaped like a cone, like you said. But on the Big Bang, I'm pretty sure that's Oh wait, are you talking about here or here?
Yeah, that initial initial stage.
Yeah, that's probably due to inflation, which so the universe existed small, and then inflation happened after the Big Bang, which is most probably why that happened and why it's that shape.
Nice. And then the other question I had, more subjective for you, was the kind of numbers and timescales that you're talking about are so incredibly vast that we all probably have a very difficult time even contemplating their nature. So it sort of brings up the question, given that whatever scenario turns out to be true is so far in the future, why should we care? Why do you care?
Well, yeah, I struggle with this a lot. Why am I choosing this topic? And I think it's just because humans are naturally curious, and we study things and try to learn about things that have no effect on our daily lives. So I think that's why I think that's why people are studying this field. You don't have to care if you aren't interested by it, but if you are, you definitely should pursue this because it's really interesting.
Super, well done. Thank you.
Mr. Peregoodoff, I'm wondering, there's a lot of science in here that you actually don't even learn until the start of grade 9. Now it's in the grade 10 curriculum about how our universe is and all our own solar system. So when did you start being interested in this, and did you read something? Were you watching a movie? How did you start?
So I actually got into this by watching a lot of YouTube, a lot of really, really nerdy science videos. They're so bad. But I got really interested in science, and then specifically I got interested in astrophysics just through the videos. And I've been interested since around, I'd say early grade 7. It's not a super long time.
Do you have a hero in this field?
Bill
Bill
Nye.
Nye, the science guy. Okay, opening up to questions from the floor.
So a lot of, like maybe around fourth grades, they're like, the end of the universe is going to be when the sun explodes. Does that apply to any of these Big Bang or the Big Crunch?
That's actually a question. So that actually has to do with the end of the world, which was a question I got asked a lot. It's pretty annoying. But yeah, the end of the world will either be caused by the sun exploding or by global warming. And but yeah, the sun exploding, yeah, it doesn't really have to do with any of these theories, but it is most likely how our world will end. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job, Mr. Peregoodoff. Very interesting. This topic is awfully mind-boggling for many people. You obviously have a good grasp on what you've been learning about it. And I'm wondering what's in you that drives you to learn about this topic, something that doesn't have answers at the end of it. Many of us can be frustrated by not learning something and achieving an answer at the end of it, but you obviously have allowed yourself to learn and be open, maybe allow yourself to turn over to be part of the universe. How do you do that, and how do you accept the end?
So are you asking, like, how do I want to study something that I'll never know the answer to?
That's a good way of summarizing.
So, I don't know, I'm really interested. I was first really interested in stuff like this, mostly because of cool space pictures online. But then the reason I'm still interested in this, even though I won't know the answer, is because I kind of guess that I know the answer. I make up my own theory in my head, and then I just try to apply that, and if it works, it works, but if it doesn't, so I try to make up my own theory that works, and that's how I cope with that.
Great presentation. I was just wondering if you would ever consider like going into a career and like making up your own theory to this?
So I could, and it's kind of interests me to do that, but I'd probably want to go into astrophysics, but I'd have to get really good at math.
You already are good at math. I was quite impressed with all the scientific notation and powers of 10 that you showed there.
Yeah, so you talked about how you said that you made up your own theory. What does your theory consist of?
Oh, so I was mostly speaking, I was speaking to the end of the universe, so for the end of the universe, I think about the heat death theory, but for the beginning of the universe, I mostly think that, oh God, I hope I explained this well. So in the beginning of the universe, all the four fundamental forces of the universe were condensed into one. So gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear force were all one force. And the first force to become its own was gravity. So I think that gravity worked with the other forces in reverse during inflation and then broke off when the universe became big enough and works like we know it now. So that's my theory.
Mr. Peregoodoff, I don't know how to phrase this. I have one question. Question is, huh? Actually, I have a real question, but some observations. Like, when I say, huh, I've never understood this stuff. I don't get it. So, does the universe have an edge? This density of the teaspoon with the, that whole thing. This whole idea, even Big Bang, something from nothing. Huh? So I don't get any of that. But my question has to do with you and how you think about this kind of stuff. And it was alluded to already. Someone said the numbers are so fast, it's hard to comprehend. Yeah, no kidding. They're hard to comprehend. But I want to know, you said something about if I think I can just kind of accept it. And so my question is, how is your brain wired? How do you actually comprehend this stuff?
So I kind of, when I'm thinking, I don't think about the scale of the numbers that represent. I just think about the numbers and how they like work with other numbers. So when I look at this number, I just know it's really small. That's like really small. And then when I think of a number like 10 to the 32 Kelvin, I know it's really big. So I kind of take what I know and then kind of try to apply it to the numbers that work here.
Just an observation I love, by the way, when you say to clarify, and then you do a little chart on the thing with 3 axes and a dot, and then you do to clarify and talk about typology. I still don't know what the heck you're talking about.
Nice presentation. It was really good. Well done. To go with Ted's question, why can't something be smaller than that number?
Okay, so this is a really weird thing, but at that point, if something became smaller, it would just disappear. Like it wouldn't work because that's the same length as this theorized thing called quantum foam, which is what everything in the universe rests on. It's really weird. It makes like no sense. But yeah, nothing can be smaller than that.
Great presentation, Mr. Lutz. I just have one question. What shape is the universe?
God. Oh, God. Okay. So in the heat death scenario, the universe is open, so this would be represented as a flat plane that the universe rests on. But in the big crunch scenario, the universe is closed. This would be represented as a sphere. So in a closed universe, if you traveled in any direction for a long enough time, you'd come back to the exact place that you were.
Well done, Mr. Peregoodoff. Well done, Mr. Peregoodoff. I just have a question, I guess. And have you ever, you've acknowledged that some of these things you just have to accept, which is kind of like the first theory around religion.
Yeah.
And have you ever thought about the fact that that some of this stuff, there is that consistency around just acceptance and faith in all the various theories that are out there?
Mm-hmm. So I think the one difference I would say, and be really careful here. I'm gonna be really careful. So with religion, it's an acceptance in a thing that you can't like really see or understand. But with these theories, it's an acceptance in like numbers, which we can comprehend and like know that the numbers work out to do this. Which it still takes some faith, but I think it takes like a less.
I just had one more question for you. So you talked about in the heat death theory how dark matter, dark energy or whatever, will stop causing the force, stop causing the universe to expand. So how does that work even though the gravitational attraction between two objects becomes smaller when they get further apart?
So I didn't really talk about this. Thanks for saying that. So it would most likely happen because dark energy in a big crunch scenario decays over time, or there's a finite amount of it. So yeah, decays. Thank you. Oh my God, so many questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peregoodoff. You reminded me of Neil deGrasse Tyson as you were talking. I thought you did a great job of taking us through a story and presenting examples and explaining very difficult concepts in a way that was funny and entertaining and factual and helped us understand. Can you, question similar to Dr. Spears, can you tell us a little bit about how you decide what we need to know? You've spent a lot of time, there's obviously a lot of science that you're aware of that we're not, and yet you managed to simplify it without making it simple for us.
Okay, so what I did was I had 3 theories in my paper, And one of them was, vacuum decay, which I talked about earlier, and it was so complex I barely understood it. So I decided, nope, I'm just going to take that out. It doesn't really fit. And then these two theories are also the most popular and most likely, so it makes the most sense to put them in. And also, I only explained the things that you needed to know to understand the theory. So yeah.
Thank you for doing that filtering for us.
According to the Big Bounce theory, do you think our universe has already had a few big bangs and big crunches, or do you think this has been our universe's first and final Big Bang?
Yeah, so, I'm a believer in the heat death theory, which is like the most sad one, but I am. And so, I don't think there's been any big crunches before this. I think this is the first universe, and it might be the last if quantum tunneling isn't real.
Is there some way to stop the end of the universe, like in the future, with some new technology thing?
Okay, so this is a really also a very hard thing to understand. It's in my paper, so it's something called the Dyson scenario. It's theorized by Freeman Dyson, and what he said was if an advanced enough beings could get enough energy and then only use half of it, so they'd use half the energy to have free thought, and then they'd go to sleep where they use no energy, and then they'd use a quarter of the energy, and then they use like an eighth of the energy, and then they keep using these halves of halves. They wouldn't technically ever use all the energy they had, so they'd stay alive through heat death. I know it's really complex, I barely even understand it, but they'd stay alive through heat death by only using half of the available energy that they had at one time. Advanced enough species.
Okay.
In the end, in the theory, in the theories for the end of the universe, both of them, the gravity becomes really high, and how would that affect time? Because gravity and time are super related.
So, so time is it's weird. I don't really get this, but when there's when you're by something that has a lot of gravity, time moves slower for you. So I feel so maybe in a big crunch scenario, if you somehow didn't die by the extreme heat, time would stop. I don't know, sorry. It's really strange and I don't understand it.
So since you can never create or destroy energy, is that how the heat death would kill the universe? Because it's spread out over a long distance?
So the reason heat death would be really the reason we couldn't come back from heat death except for quantum tunneling is because there'd be so much, the universe would be so massive that there wouldn't be any actual energy. There wouldn't be any actual mass or particles because they would have all decayed into energy rays, which over time energy rays decay as they travel through space. So eventually there'd just be nothing in the universe. It'd just be this empty, bleak place. Not fun.
Mr. Peregoodoff, I think this is off. That sounds really boring.
It is.
I mean, your project is so interesting. The end that you propose is terrifyingly boring. But the question that keeps popping up in my head is you mentioned all kinds of really interesting words. How the hell do they come up with these words? Well, spaghettification makes sense, but then you mentioned the name of a number?
The Planck? Planck?
No, that's a good one too.
It's the guy who came up with it. His last name was Planck.
Okay, and then there was a big number that had a really cool name.
Planck temperature?
No, it was previous. You had a bunch of names. So as a scientist, I assume, because of your coat, who gets to make up these names?
It's usually the people who discover them.
So do you think you'll have
Big ego.
a Peregoodoff-ian number, or?
No.
Thanks so much, Mr. Peregoodoff. What a captivating and thought-provoking presentation you've done here. Clearly, by all the questions that have come out of it, you've really sparked a lot of dialogue and interest, and I really applaud your courage to take on something so complex as you have. My sole question is, as you've gone through this now, you mentioned the term, and this is what Adrian was speaking, lots of terms, but you used the term in your presentation, infinite. Okay? Do you think that there can be more than one infinite thing or idea?
Sorry, so are you, I don't.
Do you think there is the possibility of more than one infinite thing or idea?
Well, so infinity is really weird. It's not really a number, it's an idea. So when I say infinite, I'm kind of just exaggerating. So when I say, the universe will exist like this for what we could call an infinite amount of time. I say that because if you were a being who existed then, it would feel like an infinite amount of time because there would be no time, like no points and reference points, like no events you could reference off of. So in a philosophical way, it's infinite, but in a more mathematical or scientific way, it's not. It's infinite is doesn't exist.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Peregoodoff, you've done an excellent job answering all these quite difficult questions, and you've answered them quite eloquently, so I'm very impressed with that. You've answered 20 minutes of questions, which is almost longer than your presentation, so good job, my friend. A big round of applause for Peregoodoff.